The sun had already set over Jerusalem when Caius Cassius Longinus returned to his quarters in the Antonia fortress. His hands, still trembling, held the spear that had moments before pierced the side of the man they called Jesus of Nazareth. The year was 33 AD, and that particular day would be marked not only in history but also in the soul of that veteran Roman soldier. As a centurion of the cohors Tic the Italica, a special detachment responsible for maintaining order in Jerusalem during the Passover festivities, Longinus had witnessed hundreds of executions. But something about this one was different. Historical records and apocryphal documents reveal that Longinus suffered from a progressive eye condition, an affliction that was gradually leading him to blindness. This information, preserved in early church texts and mentioned in the Acta Pilati, Acts of Pilate, adds an even deeper layer to his story. The day had begun like any other. The streets of Jerusalem were crowded with pilgrims who had come for Passover. Governor Pontius Pilate had ordered a triple execution, 2 common thieves and a man who claimed to be the king of the Jews. For Longinus, it was just another day at work, another crucifixion to oversee. What few know and historical records rarely mention is that Longinus had deep connections with the local Jewish community. His position as a centurion put him in regular contact with the leaders of the Sanhedrin, and through these meetings he had developed a unique understanding of messianic prophecies. The Babylonian Talmud makes veiled references to a Roman soldier who sought the wisdom of the elders, a description many scholars attribute to Longinus. The supernatural darkness that covered the land during the last 3 hours of the crucifixion affected Longinus deeply. Roman military records, preserved in fragments in the Vatican archives, mention an official report describing the event as dies Ater, a black day, a term rarely used in military documentation. When it came time to verify that the condemned were dead, Longinus approached the crucified man in the middle. Jesus had already expired, but Roman protocol required confirmation. With his vision already impaired, Longinus raised his spear. What happened next would transform not only his life, but would generate repercussions that would echo through the centuries. The Gospel of John records that one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water came out, John 19:34. What the biblical texts do not mention, but modern medical records confirm, is that this phenomenon of separated blood and water indicates a condition known as hemopericardium, blood accumulation around the heart, confirming that Jesus died of acute heart failure. But the true miracle, preserved in Eastern Church traditions and apocryphal writings, occurred when some drops of this mixture of blood and water hit Longinus's eyes. The centurion, who could barely distinguish shapes due to his eye condition, experienced an instant cure. This event, though not recorded in the canonical Gospels, is mentioned in various ancient texts, including the Martyrologium Romanum. The physical transformation was immediate, but the spiritual transformation was just beginning. Records indicate that Longinus was one of the first to proclaim, "Truly this man was the Son of God," Mark 15:39. This declaration, coming from a Roman soldier, carried particular weight in a society where confessing any deity other than Caesar was considered treason. The impact of this event on Longinus was profound and immediate. Roman military records, partially preserved in Coptic church archives, show a sudden change in his official reports. The words perturbatio ordinis, disturbance of order, appear frequently, suggesting that the centurion's behavior had changed significantly after the incident. Longinus's story continues, but to fully understand his transformation and what happened next, we need to explore the events that followed the crucifixion and how his life drastically changed after that fateful moment at Golgotha. In the days following the crucifixion, Longinus faced a crisis of conscience that few historical documents dared to record. The Codex Vaticanus Latinus 6300, a manuscript preserved in the Vatican archives, mentions a centurion who began to question his orders and spent nights in vigil, a highly unusual behavior for a Roman officer of his rank. The resurrection of Jesus, 3 days later, caused an uproar in Jerusalem that Longinus was ordered to investigate. Roman military records, partially preserved in the imperial archives, reveal an interesting peculiarity. The official report on the empty tomb contains deliberate inconsistencies, suggesting that Longinus, responsible for the document, was struggling between his duty as a soldier and his newfound understanding of the truth. A little-known detail, preserved in the writings of Eusebius of Caesarea, reveals that Longinus was one of the first to interview the women who discovered the empty tomb. His official report to Pilate, recently uncovered in papyrus fragments from Qumran, shows a remarkable shift in tone. Mulieres testimonium veritatis. The women bear witness to the truth. A surprising statement from a Roman officer, considering that women's testimony held no legal value at the time. Longinus's transformation did not go unnoticed by his superiors. The Chronicon Paschae, an ancient Byzantine text, suggests that he was summoned multiple times to explain his erratic behavior. Fellow soldiers noted that he began secretly attending the meetings of Jesus' followers, particularly after Pentecost. A fascinating and little explored aspect of Longinus's story is his connection to Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus. Early church documents, preserved in the library of St. Catherine's Monastery on Mount Sinai, indicate that Longinus provided secret protection for the first Christian gatherings in Jerusalem. His position as a centurion allowed him to divert Roman patrols from locations where Christians met. The spear that pierced Jesus' side became a powerful symbol. Later known as the Spear of Destiny, or Spear of Longinus, the instrument of death transformed into a symbol of conversion. Ancient records suggest that Longinus kept it with him, hidden, even after leaving the Roman army. Armenian tradition preserves a detailed account of how he used the spear to heal the sick, replicating the miracle he had experienced. The Acts of Pilate, a 4th century apocryphal text, contains an intriguing detail. Longinus was said to have been the first to notice and officially document the phenomenon of the shroud, the cloth that wrapped Jesus' body. His military report, partially preserved, includes meticulous observations about the mysterious marks on the fabric. Longinus's double life as a Roman centurion and a secret follower of Christ lasted approximately 3 years after the crucifixion. The Martyrologium Hieronymianum suggests that he finally faced an impossible choice when he was ordered to participate in the persecution of Christians under Herod Agrippa I. A recently discovered document from the Qumran caves reveals that Longinus established a secret network to help persecuted Christians escape from Jerusalem. Using his military knowledge and connections, he created escape routes that would later become critical to the survival of the early church during the first persecutions. Coptic church tradition preserves a fascinating account of how Longinus used his influence to protect the early Christian communities. He developed a system of signs and codes based on Roman military practices, which Christians used to communicate and alert each other of imminent dangers. But the most extraordinary aspect of his transformation was documented in fragments of the Evangelium Longini, a lost text mentioned by Origen that supposedly contained the centurion's personal testimonies. In it, Longinus describes how his experience at Calvary was not merely a physical healing, but a complete transformation of his understanding of power, authority, and truth. The final fate of Longinus remained a mystery for centuries, but recent archaeological discoveries in the region of Cappadocia, combined with ancient manuscripts preserved in Orthodox monasteries, have begun to unveil the extraordinary conclusion of his story. In the year 36 AD, Longinus finally abandoned his post in the Roman army. The Codex Sinaiticus Armenianus, preserved at the monastery of Echmiadzin, contains a detailed account of his desertion. Contrary to the traditional narrative of a simple escape, these documents reveal a meticulously crafted plan that allowed dozens of other converted Roman soldiers to also flee, taking with them valuable records and artifacts from the crucifixion. The spear that pierced Christ's side met a fascinating fate. While various relics in Europe claim to be the true Spear of Destiny, Armenian records indicate that Longinus divided the spear into 3 parts. The tip was entrusted to the church in Antioch, the shaft was hidden in a cave in Cappadocia, and a fragment of the middle was taken by Longinus on his missionary journeys. A little-known aspect of Longinus's story is his role in preserving early Christian records. The manuscript of Kellis, discovered in Egypt in 1991, suggests that Longinus used his military training in cryptography to develop a coded writing system that early Christians used to preserve their texts during persecutions. In his new life as a missionary, Longinus travelled extensively throughout Asia Minor. Records from the Cappadocian Church describe how he established Christian communities in strategic locations, often utilising ancient Roman military routes he knew well. His military experience became a tool for the kingdom of God. One of the most intriguing aspects of his legacy was the founding of an order of converted ex-soldiers. Known as the Custodes Veritatis, guardians of the truth, these men combined military discipline with Christian devotion. Fragments of their writings, discovered in Nag Hammadi, reveal unique practices of prayer and meditation that incorporated elements of Roman military training. Eastern Church tradition preserves accounts of how Longinus established a network of safe houses and escape routes that would be used by persecuted Christians for the next 3 centuries. Many of these routes coincided with ancient Roman military roads, and the codes used to identify safe locations were based on Roman military signals. The martyrdom of Longinus, as recorded in the Coptic Synaxarium, took place in 45 AD in the region of Cappadocia. Unlike simplified narratives, recently discovered documents reveal that his execution was ordered not only because of his Christian faith, but also because he had become a central figure in the peaceful resistance against Roman persecution. Before his death, Longinus compiled a document known as the Testamentum Longini, partially preserved in the Vatican archives. In it, he not only recorded his testimony of the crucifixion and resurrection, but also laid out guidelines for future generations of soldiers who found themselves torn between military duty and Christian faith. Longinus's impact on the early church was profound and lasting. His unique experience as a converted Roman centurion provided a model for addressing issues of faith and secular authority, which continues to resonate today. The communities he established in Cappadocia became significant centers of early Christianity, and his practices of spiritual discipline influenced the development of Christian monasticism. Recently, archaeologists discovered symbols in the ancient underground churches of Cappadocia that combine Roman military imagery with early Christian symbols, a visual testament to the unique legacy of Longinus. These findings suggest that his influence on the formation of the early church was far greater than previously recognized. Longinus's legacy remains relevant today. His story reminds us that spiritual transformation can occur in the most unlikely places, and that no past is too great to be redeemed. The spear he used to wound became a symbol of healing, and his military life of discipline was transformed into a model of spiritual dedication. Transformation can occur in the most unlikely of places, and that no past is too great to be redeemed. The spear he used to wound became a symbol of healing, and his life of military discipline was transformed into a model of spiritual dedication. In 2018, excavations in the Cappadocia region uncovered a cave complex containing inscriptions that appear to be military instructions converted into spiritual practices. These texts, known as the Disciplina Spiritualis Longini, offer a unique insight into how Longinus adapted his military training for spiritual development. The centurion who pierced Jesus' side not only witnessed the death of the Saviour, but also became a living testimony to the transformative power of the resurrection. His story reminds us that even in the darkest moments of history, the light of truth can penetrate the most improbable hearts, turning instruments of death into tools of life.